The Amazon, the last call.
Dos habitaciones, sí.
2 rooms, yes.
Obrigado,
Thank you.
Chao.
Ciao.
Bueno, pues, acabo de
Well,
confirmar
I've just
dos
taken 2
habitaciones
rooms right in the heart of the jungle marshes. This is possible in Brazil. With money, time, and a certain sense of adventure, one can get close to nature. A few businessmen have found El Dorado. They look for it in the luggage, in the backpacks of those travelers that come to the Amazonia, to the marshes, to the natural beauty of Brazil. We hope this El Dorado will not be impoverished as have others, and we hope that the conservation and intelligent use of this nature will permit us to continue enjoying the beauty of, among other animals, the tuyuyuy. One out of 8 tourists who visit the Pantanal is Brazilian. The rest of the tourists who come to this privileged place in the states of Mato Grosso and Mato Grosso do Sul is a foreigner. This data is not only a reflection of the economic situation of the 170 million Brazilians, it is also a reflection of their unawareness as a people of the natural wealth of their own country. Is the Brazilian natural wealth better evaluated outside of its own frontiers? These birds are called cabeças secas, or dry heads, waders that prefer living in community and are within everyone's reach. But they need the laws that protect them to be efficient and reasonable. Massive tourism can destroy the tranquility they need to reproduce, and then the curtain will be permanently drawn on their performance. On today's program, we're going to show you specimens of nature that are willing to welcome guests, but moderately, regulated by a necessary and profitable conservation. Brazil has an income of $40 million based on international tourism that comes to enjoy scenes such as this one. But the South American giant still has things to learn from smaller countries that have a better knowledge of how to manage their natural potential. Costa Rica is 98 times smaller than Brazil, but receives $600 million a year, exactly 93% more profits than Brazil, and without damaging their natural resources. The Brazilian popes of ecological tourism still have a lot to learn. Brazil has 61 specimens of primates, quite a record, and each year a new species is discovered. Half of the planet's life forms are found between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn, and as we can see, not only within the tropical forests. It is also found in less-known ecosystems such as the Cerrado, the Caatinga, or the Atlantic Mata. Animal life is found throughout all of the Brazilian landscape, and we can enjoy their sight without bothering them in the 21 national parks, and 12 federal biological reserves that protect their habitats. $11 million protected hectares that may seem like a lot, but are really just a little over 1% of the Brazilian territory. Natural areas in which each living being is a musical note, without which the scale is incomplete, and the melody is simply impossible. It's difficult to compose any kind of serenade without the notes do, re, or fa, and these animals lean on each other so that the natural world is in tune, so that it sounds good. The loss of a plant species marks the extinction of 30 insect species that live associated with it. The variety of garments that this praying mantis uses is closely bound to the vitality of the plant life around it. Fashion is set by the whole in the Brazilian territory, and all that we see is the fruit of millions of years on the catwalk. Life around here is perfect, but fragile. The land which feeds the enormous trees that attract our attention is made of minute organisms that work for us day and night. Nobody freelances here. This is teamwork that gives out equal dividends at the end of the year. Up or down, there is always someone working for you. 1,400,000 species of living organisms have been cataloged in the world. Just 5% of those that is estimated to actually inhabit our planet, and that are still unclassified. Brazil holds first place, amassing the largest number of different animal and plant species, followed by Colombia, Mexico, and Indonesia. We were familiar with the existence of solitary spiders, weavers of personal and non-transferable traps. But until we stepped on Brazilian soil, we were unfamiliar with other types of arachnid life. Spiders here hunt in groups. This poor ant is the victim of a social life as organized as its own. Another solitary insectivorous hunter does the same. The web has been weaved among all of them, and they now equally share their takes. While these 8-legged predators hunt in a group, a black golden-hand sagui, an unusual primate keen on large insects, finishes a grasshopper off. A large amount of biomass is active in the different Brazilian habitats, and those that eat today may be eaten tomorrow, a golden rule in the game of life. If it's your desire to spend a few days immersed in the scenario that we have just described, you can do so. And you can also shower at night and dine with candles in the middle of the jungle. More and more hotels are making interesting offers that are at the same time respectful of the environment. It costs $80 to spend the night in this igarapé, in this hotel, close to the city of Manaus. In spite of the beauty of this fertile land, and of being only 5 hours away by plane from Miami, for example, the American ecotourists are still untempted by the innovative offers of the Brazil environmental tourism. There are only 17 hotels in what is the largest expanse of virgin jungle in the world, 5 million square kilometers. These hotels are in the midst of nature, and almost all of them were inaugurated just over the last few years. The natural surroundings are tempting, but the animals that call our attention will undoubtedly disappear under compulsive and massive tourism. For the time being, these Jabutitinga tortoises shamelessly exhibit themselves before the visitors who enter this river in the Acre region. They come together by the hundreds during their period of reproduction, and this is precisely that period. In Venezuela, they are called morrocoyes. The aroused males seek the females out by their scent. The turtles that live in the Chapuri River are particularly large. The shell of some of the males can be 82 centimeters long, and they can weigh up to 55 kilograms. In spite of the size of their lovers, the female jabutis drag these sexual athletes by their penises as if it cost them no effort at all. Things calm down after the orgy, and the fertile females spawn from 10 to 20 eggs in a nest that has been dug into the jungle mire. The little heads of the offspring, fruit of that afternoon of orgy, will peep out, perhaps to find themselves in front of the camera of a tourist who is visiting the Brazilian National Park. That would be a positive thing if the end result is a greater amount of protection for themselves and their offspring. The National Park of Itatiaia is not famous precisely for its tortoises. The mountain that is missing from Amazonia is right here, beaming and haughty. It spreads its mountainous nature throughout 3 states that are far away from the Amazon River: Minas Gerais, Rio de Janeiro, and Sao Paulo. We have come to this national park because it was the first one to be established in Brazil in 1937, precisely because of its varied flora and its beautiful landscapes. The majority of its vegetation is endemic. It cannot be found anywhere else in the world, and the São Canelas, the Semprevivas, the Ipés, and the Capreúvas upholster this park that has 30,000 hectares of unaltered nature. Itatiaia has a forest that is only 70 meters above sea level, with rocky crests that reach an altitude of 2,787 meters. This park is not lacking in orchids, some of which are small, adapting themselves to the low temperatures that are reached above the 2,000-meter level, and living associated to lichen and moss. Other species develop their chromatic creativity on the leaves of the large trees that, as you can see, give a generous touch of color similar to that of its Amazonic kin. The orchids found in the National Park of Itatiaia are considered among the botanists to be one of the most beautiful of its kind in the world, and we quite agree. In the indigenous Tupi-Guarani language, Poranga means beauty, and that is how this valley is called, the Poranga Valley. Itatiaia is a tangle of fountains and waterfalls that are kept in perfect condition. An enclave ideal for finding oneself, especially when one lives in a large city of over 20 million inhabitants like Sao Paulo, just 258 kilometers from this tranquility. Primitive animals also take advantage of this landscape for some peaceful living. This iguana of the Sinimbu species is one of them, and has come down from the trees to cool off by the shores of the Rio Bonito, or Pretty River, another of the riverbeds that sweeten Itatiaia. The good tourist who comes to this national park will have to be satisfied with watching it from afar, without them noticing, and that is precisely what we do. The large waterfall inside this national park washes the crags with 40 meters of turbulent water. It's called the Velo de la Novia, the bride's veil, and is a leap that the visitor will not forget in a lifetime. Among other reasons, because in order to get here, it will have been necessary to walk through a path of 1.5 kilometers. But if you want something, you have to work for it. Itatiaia is a national park that is crossed by 5 rivers of interesting and exotic names and appearances. The Prieto River, the Maromba, the Marimbondo, the Flores, and the Ayuroca drink and shade for a grateful fauna. "360 bird species inhabit Itatiaia, and of these, the beija-flores are the most frequently seen. Some types of hummingbirds are endemic to this place, as are the flowers from which they feed. With a perimeter of 110 kilometers, this pioneer of the Brazilian national parks is considered a treasure chest in which the most precious gems of the fauna and flora are kept, forming a part of an ecosystem about which very little is known, the Atlantic Mata. The summer weather here is gentle, and the clouds take a liking to this place. Many of these creatures will never be seen by the hundreds of tourists that visit Itatiaia each year. They are protected by night's cloak. But that's what we and our patient sense of naturalism are here for, so that you can enjoy the image of a medium-sized hunter with a quick metabolism and a very bad temper. The jupara, a prosioninos that walks on all fours like bears, is very rarely filmed, an animal that finds one of its last strongholds in the sacred woods of Itatiaia. It has a long prehensile tail and a voracious appetite. It is just one of the 67 mammal species that reproduce in Itatiaia, and one of the reasons that justify the creation of this national park. Everyone around here fears the volcano's anger. We're in the Emas National Park, and in 1988, a storm such as this one caused a fire that destroyed 60% of the park. But everyone must continue with their lives, in spite of fear. In today's chapter, we are searching for contrasts, and none stands out better than this one. The concentration by square meters of the white ants' nests is the largest on the whole planet. This amount of ants' nests all lined up can't even be found in Africa, forming a landscape of their own and a watchtower. This landscape is one of the particular features of a national park that has wide horizons. The monumental work done by the insects gives it a lunar aspect that many take advantage of to grow and multiply, like these coruchas buraqueiras, firmly posted. The anteater has a less functional and much more beautiful name, Tamandua bandeira, and this nearsighted termite eater is a stately banner. It can open the ant's nest with its front claws. The Tamandua bandeira has a tongue that is a meter long, bad hearing, and even worse eyesight. But it has a great sense of smell. The Emas National Park is considered by the Brazilian experts in environmental studies to be one of the most fragile units of conservation in the country. The purest hectares of South American tropical savanna that we can dream of is protected here, with a fauna and flora typical of other ecosystems that are distant from the Amazonia, but of great value, such as the cerrado. Created in 1972, this park is as smooth as the palm of a gigantic hand, in which a threatened fauna lives, varied and easily observed by all who enter. The national park owes its name to this bird, the biggest in Brazil, the ema, a South American ostrich with the representation of thousands that live in the boundaries of this park. In other regions, such as the Mato Grosso, it is called ñandú, and in Bahia de los Machos, Congo. Ema is the best known in all of Brazil, a bird that can weigh up to 35 kilograms, and that has been brutally persecuted by hunters who make a profit on their feathers. Even today, hunters kill these birds and tear the feathers off, sending them via Paraguay to be later exported to Europe and Arabia, competing in price with African ostrich feathers. The emas live in groups led by a dominating male, gathering up to 6 females in its harem. Theirs is a responsible debauchery, putting all the eggs in one single nest that will be incubated and taken care of only by the male. Thanks to the creation of this sanctuary, this marvelous example of the Brazilian bird fauna is recovering its population. The Ema National Park would lose its meaning without them, and even its name. Although the ema is the queen of the bird population here in this protected nature, others will let themselves be admired by the visitors who come to this treeless Brazil. The tacha reminds us of the European goose because of their noisy group meetings. Ornithologists have studied the power of its honk and have quantified it. The voice of this strange bird the size of a turkey can be clearly heard 3 kilometers away. This baby chick needs its mother's larynx and its cries to orient itself and not get cut away from the group. Emas is an immense territory in which any mistake, however small, can be mortal. After leaving the Emas National Park, we return to central Amazonia. We can't help ourselves. We are in Mamirauá, the first functional development reserve in Brazil, where mankind is a fundamental part of a nature conservation project, unique in the world. The coastline population arrived here at the beginning of the century, and even when they always took profit from the river, they did so in an unruly manner, being witness to the jungle's exhaustion and the end of their future. They became a civil society in 1992, and today, 6,000 people live decently in a natural area which they take care of and protect with all their senses. This reserve has benefited them since its creation. The family income is of 3 million pesetas a year since then, amounts that are well over the average of the Amazon inhabitants who do not regulate the extraction of natural resources, such as fishing, hunting, or the woodlands. Six communities of coastal natives live here, sending their children to school and assuring basic sanitary conditions, thanks to this project, which is based on the conservation and intelligent use of the river's wealth. United and organized, the Mamirauá population has set an example for the world. The civilized Amazonia, where there is a place for everyone. This primate was unknowingly the craftsman of all this prosperity. The white ukari, an animal that also has its home in Mamirauá, as do the riverbed people, and how it enjoys itself. The biologist José Marco Aires arrived here in 1983 to study it, and asserted the importance this river basin had for the survival of these primates, managing to get the first governmental declaration of protection, which in time gave way to this other project, which everyone benefits from. Such a special being can only be seen in Mamirauá. The white ukari has found its last refuge here, and the human inhabitants, those who once hunted it down, now protect it as if it were a child and are proud of it. This is the rarest and scarcest of all the primate specimens that inhabit the Amazon. Its habit of drinking its own urine also seems unusual to us. But according to the experts in primates, this behavior helps them obtain the antibodies and minerals that they need. The wonders of the woodlands. Fish is an important food source for the human beings that live in the Amazonia, as well as for those that live in the Mamirauá Reserve. Fishing is regulated by the fishermen themselves, defining reproduction areas that were once mindlessly drained out, and establishing a complete prohibition of those species that are scarce, such as the pirarucu, prohibited from the 1st of December to the 31st of May. This feeds the cormorants. Mamirauá is synonymous with 1 million hectares of flooded jungle, where the water levels vary spectacularly depending on the time of year in which we visit. From the rainy season to the dry season, the water level will rise 14 meters, forcing the fauna to recede or advance according to the river's whim. But the big trees are always there, like this Samaumeida, the base, the column, and the spire of the tropical basilica. The giant arboreal of the Amazonia has grown silently in this woodland during a number of centuries, and today give us their shade. The asaku, or the esqueda, can grow up to 50 meters high. They all disseminate their seeds thanks to the river movements. That is why the floods, that now give way to the dry season, leaving this jungle upside down, are so important. Many vines are more than aerial roots. They are water udders for those that are familiar with them, and for those that are aware of the importance the liquid element has when one has to walk around this tricky green desert for a few hours.
Aquí los moradores para tomar agua, ellos.
When they need water, the people that live around here make an incision here and another one here, so that it hangs down, you know. And the water is pleasant. It serves a lot of purposes, especially when the only water to be found is right here. This is the solution. Then they throw the bark away. The powder comes out of here, from this. Then it's used as a home remedy. It can be prepared at home. It dries and then you put it in the... like the salt. Well, you eat it, and it cures various kinds of cancer.
A number of universities are studying the effects of the sipo tea in their fight against cancer. Mamirawa is a large chemist shop that is waiting to make us happy. On the mezzanine, another group of beneficiaries call our attention. A group of white-lipped saginos chirp away like birds. Surely it's to honor their prey, for they're going to have eggs for breakfast. These small macaque of the zebu genus are less fearsome, and a few meters further down from the nest await their daily ration of calcium. The eggshells discarded by their associates provide an extra doses of vitamins that their little bodies appreciate. 8 different types of primates live hidden away in the Mamirawa jungle, and some of these of customs unknown to us. Because of their small size and the oversized roofing that hides them, they're not always easy to see, and even less so, as you can imagine, when there is a camera around. For these primates, lunchtime is a time for forwardness. But fortunately, we were in the right place and with good reflexes. The renovation processes occur here in the humid jungle without any misalignments. The elder trees die so that other organisms can become stronger, a chain in which man should never have interfered. The largest water lily in the world doesn't need to be on land to live. It nourishes and sustains itself thanks to the river, the master. It's the Victoria regia, a plant capable of supporting the weight of an 8-year-old child without breaking. The Mamirawa Reserve is the largest breeding colony of some of the birds that we have seen throughout the Amazon River basin. They arrive here from afar, species that have taken advantage of the low river tide to bore their nests into the newly designed shores. The cortaguas, or watercutters, and these charranes have made of this beach their settlement. The predators know this and pursue them relentlessly for hours. That is why the baby chicks leave the nests almost immediately after birth. They are capable of resolving the situation all by themselves. Mamirawa has always been this way. A shiny thread in the middle Solimois, a paradise within a paradise, a bubble isolated from the maddening crowd, which, as in other parts of the Amazonia, was also mortally threatened by speculators. Today, this active community is also the mutual home of all those people who have come together in a project that seeks no monetary gain, and who have seen the profitability and calm that could not be achieved with less sensible projects. Nature is right there, as it always has been, for the enjoyment of a well-intentioned mankind, and not as an element to be consumed during a few generations. "517 amphibious species live in Brazil, and a large number of them peep out at life in Mamirawa, camouflaged so as not to be crushed, but beautiful in the eyes of those who deserve it." Other workers of the large jungle factory are more forward, particularly at snack time. The coatis toss everything around on the jungle floor while searching for ants. These mammals have an extensive menu, but the prized sweets are hidden inside the antholes, although on ground level they don't look as sweet. The nozzle is dominated by a mobile nose which permits sniffing here and there without missing out on any of the information that the Jungle Book provides them. With its claws, the coati earns its bread and defends itself from its enemies. A hound dog or two know what we're talking about. These amusing carnivorous animals are kin to the raccoons and have the same roguish look about them. They live in large family groups and have very few enemies in their habitats. Perhaps the tapir could be considered an enemy, due more to its size than an evil disposition. The tapir is known around here as the anta, a good-hearted giant that can weigh up to 300 kilograms, and in spite of being a night animal, has very small eyes. Its compass is located in its nose, a proboscis similar to that of the elephants, with which it gently tastes the vegetation before carrying it to its mouth. All of these living beings, and many others that have not posed in front of our cameras, live together without conflict in the state of the Amazon, in the confluence of the Solimois, Japurá, and Auati-Paraná rivers. In an example of conservation and consensual development, which is the Mamirawa Reserve. And we don't want to leave until you meet a jacare species that is highly in danger of extinction. The blue jacare, an outlaw in the majority of the Amazon waters, still maintains a healthy population here. The River Coast people do not consider it an enemy, but just another element that belongs to the clean landscape that natural tourism wants to see. The blue jacare is a vibrating symbol, another reason to come and visit Mamiroa. Our travels through a few of Brazil's protected areas lead to the sea, as does the Amazon. This way, we reach the archipelago of Fernando de Noronha, 112 square kilometers of oceanic nature, still unperturbed by mass tourism. A national park formed of 21 islands and breakwaters. An Eden that was once an inferno, because from the year 1737 up until 1942, Fernando de Noronha was the place where all the prisoners of the Republic were deported, both common and political prisoners, to rot away. These lizards must have been witness to all of it. They are an endemic species and cannot be found anywhere else on the planet save for this archipelago. They have been serving their life sentence on these bluffs for millions of years with dignity, just like the hundreds of prisoners that are buried here in the archipelago cemetery. They are called mabuyas and basically feed upon endemic arboreals like themselves, in this case a burra de leche, or milk donkey, a tree that oozes a gummy milk like sap. The mabuya maculata is a lizard that is fond of water and is not a picky eater, not turning up its nose up at anything. Its drinking trough is filled every night by the mist and the dew. Simple crevice is a spring for these thirsty lizards, ignoring everything else. Dozens meet here each morning, like dinosaurs escaped from the anger of Nemesis, and who evidently do not mind the passing of time. Since the national park was inaugurated, other reptiles have found the tranquility they need to reproduce on the beaches of León and Sancho. Various species of marine turtles are protected and studied by a project that began caring for them in 1984. The Tamaj project has been able to put a stop to the captures that were endangering this beautiful and defenseless green turtle. Over 200 specimens have been marked since they began their work, having registered with care the birth of 43,000 turtles in this cove. A few green turtle specimens have weighed up to 300 kilograms, but the biologists that work in the Tamaj project are not weighing them today to commercialize their meat nor their fat. They seek only to gather information on an animal that up until not too long ago was being massacred. We cannot deny the beauty of these objects made from their shells, but times have changed. We cannot afford certain luxuries, and Brazilian law currently forbids the commercialization of these projects. A national park is of no use without its natural inhabitants, and the green turtle, clumsily seeking the salt water, is one of the most important inhabitants of Fernando de Noronha. for the time being, return to the sea what belongs to it. This national park is an enclave for refined birds that settle here, trapeze artist communities. The viudinas, or the widows, are not in mourning. They haven't lost their mates, although their names refer to that situation. They are dark seabirds, painted with a fine brush and a snowflake on their pileus. They have built their nests with seaweed and will breed the chick or the couple there. The sharp beaks and webbed feet don't hide their liking for fishing. The viudinas are also called black swallows and live on the archipelago all year round. Fernando de Noronha has a number of breeding colonies of this species, something not as common as it would seem after having sighted hundreds of them on those small barren islands in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean over 500 kilometers away from the continental shore. For the time being, the viudinas patiently accept the growing number of human beings who come to the national park. The raw material that attracts tourism and that is timidly, although with a firm and worrying step, settling over the archipelago is not only solar energy. Besides the sun, birds as pretty as the viudinas are an attraction that does not deserve being mistreated. Next to the birds cast in mourning, we find their replica in exquisite white, the novinha, or gracinha, another sea swallow with sophisticated airs. They are so docile that they can be held in the palm of the hand. Thanks to the park and its restricted walking areas, they are at ease. As are the gannets, spreading their feathers with a fat that is secreted by their glands, so they don't get wet when they go for a dive. The frigate birds and the brown piqueros are watching the solar clock. Afternoon is closing in, and with it the arrival of fresh fish to the Morro Bay. With the swell, sardines and other treats come in schools that we can't see, but the piqueros do. Afternoons on Fernando de Noronha are for these birds, called atobás here. We are astounded by their fishing technique. Totally in control, they capture their prey and save their lives at the same time, watchful of the ocean's attack and of the slippery silver of their plate of fish. The fiercer Neptune's kingdom, the larger the amount of birds that ride on its crest. And what began as an isolated performance of individual fishing, in a few minutes becomes a fishing hunt in which there are more birds than fish. Dusk is on its way, and the piqueros, the frigate birds, novinas and viodinas retire. And so do we, because tomorrow will be just as intense a day as this one was in this Brazilian seafaring paradise. It's 7 o'clock in the morning in the Baía dos Golfinhos, and these young nature lovers do their mathematics exercises. They have to count without getting confused. An important scientific project that is being carried out and has been continuously 365 days a year since 1986 depends on them. They are taking a census of the dolphins, spinning dolphins that come to greet the dawn in this virgin bay every day, where navigation is forbidden so they won't be bothered. The dolphins never miss their rendezvous, but their numbers increase particularly during the months of August through January. There might easily be 700 extremely communicative specimens today. You will soon learn why they are called spinning dolphins. These mammals communicate amongst each other by letting their over 90-kilogram bodies fall on the water surface, thus producing different tones. The percussion and pirouettes form a part of a complex and personal language that is being studied by the national park biologists. The spinning dolphins inhabit the tropical Atlantic Ocean, the Pacific Ocean, and the Indian Ocean. But they find very few places like this one, where they can reproduce without persecutions or black tides. They are very sociable and go about their flings in groups, a female being courted by up to 10 males at once. The female will copulate with the one that proves to be the most intelligent and clever of the group, and will celebrate the occasion in the normal way, with an astounding leap. Fernando de Noronha is the only place in the world where we can witness the natural behavior of animals that have been so often humiliated in dolphin aquariums and in zoos. Our work in television, mine and that of my co-workers, has brought us here. We are walking on the summit of an enormous mountain that submerges 4,000 meters deep, here in the archipelago of Fernando de Noronha. You might be thinking in your homes, those people are lucky. I'd like to be in that paradise. And you're right, it is a paradise. But as in other Brazilian natural parks, it needs the care and attention of the authorities. Enjoyment and conservation in an unyielding bond. After a few years, we will return to Fernando de Noronha, and will it seem as marvelous to us? Will its natural environment have remained intact? What about the dead that are buried in this archipelago? Will they have been aroused by the noise of tourism? Everything that you have seen in today's episode exists, but above all, the possibility of getting close to nature and being able to leave it without a trace of our existence. Tourism and conservation, two concepts that are sentenced to understand each other in the 21st century. We will return to the more humanized Amazonia in our next episode. We can't help ourselves. We will narrate stories of love and indifference on the banks of everyone's river. The city struggling to find a place for itself in the middle of nature, and the jungle defending itself. We will discover the everyday life of those who have decided to colonize and dominate the most untamable nature that exists on this blue planet. And we will be witness to the daily duel with a powerful river. As you know, here in Amazonia, the last call.